Whispering Archive, Chapter 1, The Keeper of Dust, Chapter 1. Keeper of Dust, the film immediately immerses us in an atmosphere thick with historical neglect. We open on the vast, cavernous, and practically uninhabited unaired wing of the University Archive. This setting is a masterclass in establishing environmental dread. Endless rows of shells shrouded in darkness, visible only by the intermittent beams of a single, powerful flashlight. The sound design is crucial here. It's not silence, but a heavy, almost pressurized stillness that feels wrong. Our protagonist, Dr. Elara Vance, a sharp but skeptical historian, is introduced. This setting immediately establishes the tone. Academic decay hiding deep secrets. We are introduced to Dr. Elara Vance 30s, our protagonist. She's meticulously dressed, armed with a researcher's curiosity, and visibly skeptical of anything supernatural. Our protagonist, Dr. Elara Vance, a sharp but skeptical historian, is introduced. She's here on a mission to catalog the collection of the late Professor Ethelred, who vanished without a trace in 1973. A brief internal monologue, or narrated voiceover, pinning on your video style, informs us that Ethelred's official file was suspiciously sparse, calling his disappearance a confidential administrative matter. Review insight. Elara's introduction perfectly balances intellectual curiosity with grounded skepticism, making her a compelling, rational lens through which the supernatural horror will unfold. She quickly finds the section marked Ethelred. Unlike the other collections, which are tidy, this section is cordoned off with brittle yellow tape. She struggles to unlock the ancient metal gate, and the sound of the grinding lock echoes unnervingly in the massive space. This is where she meets LIAM-20s, a nervous IT assistant who is struggling to get a signal on his modern equipment. Liam's quick, nervous chatter acts as a necessary counterpoint to the heavy atmosphere. Elara ignores Liam's complaints about the pre-digital graveyard and focuses on the contents of a small, heavily sealed wooden box. She notices the seal is an unusual star-shaped wax stamp, not the standard university crest. This subtle visual detail is the first real clue that something is truly amiss. As the first chapter concludes, Elara carefully pries the box open, her expression shifting from professional interest to faint intrigue. We don't see the contents yet, but the ominous sound of the latch groaning open is the perfect hook. Alright, let's open the box. What is there or the unready left for us? The latch creaks open, and inside, well, it's not exactly treasure. We have a stack of old notebooks, paper practically turning to dust, and next to them something else, a single wax cylinder, kind used for the earliest sound recordings. But look at it, it's pristine, almost untouched by time. Strange, right? The books are falling apart, but this cylinder looks like it was made yesterday. My colleague Liam is already reaching for the notebooks, ready to scan them into our system. But I can't take my eyes off this cylinder. Paper can lie, it can be misinterpreted, but a recording captures a moment in time. It's a direct link to the past. This is where the real secret must be. And wouldn't you know it, tucked away on a nearby shelf is an old hand-cranked phonograph. It's a bit creepy, like something out of a ghost story, but it looks like it'll work. Okay, let's see what Ethelred wanted us to hear. Liam sets up the phonograph while I carefully place the cylinder onto the spindle. Tension in the room is thick enough to cut with a knife. What could be so important that it was preserved this way? A forgotten speech, a secret message. My mind is racing with possibilities. Liam lowers the needle. This is it, the moment of truth. The needle drops and chaos. An explosion of static fills the archive. It's not just noise, it's a physical force. A high-pitched screech drills into our ears while a deep, low hum vibrates through the floor, rattling my bones. It's overwhelming, painful, and then our modern tech starts to fail. Liam's tablet flickers wildly, his phone goes dead. It's as if this sound is actively hostile to technology, to order itself. It's an acoustic weapon, but wait. Through the wall of static, I can hear something else. Faint whispers twisting and turning within the noise. They don't sound human. They sound mocking, ancient, and utterly alien. Liam is panicking, convinced it's just some kind of magnetic interference or a signal jammer. He wants to shut it off. But I'm frozen. He sees chaos. I see a pattern. The whispers, the frequencies, they aren't random. It's too complex, too structured. I pull the needle off, and the sudden, crushing silence is almost as jarring as the noise was. The phonograph is dead, the cylinder inert once more. Liam is still trying to make sense of what just happened, talking about technical glitches. But I know what I heard. I can feel my hand trembling slightly as I look at the dead player. This wasn't just noise. It was a language made of pure chaos, and so the real mystery begins. Ethelred didn't just leave behind a historical record. He left behind a recording of something conscious, something that exists beyond our understanding of sound and communication. Why would a 10th century king record this? What kind of entity speaks in static and whispers? My skepticism is gone, replaced by a chilling fascination. I came here looking for a historical puzzle, but it seems I've stumbled upon something far older and far more terrifying. The journey has just begun. Alright, let's take a breath. That wax cylinder was something else. The static, the voices. It's like nothing I've ever encountered. My equipment is still recovering from whatever that was, so for now, my focus is shifting to the stack of notebooks. The personal journals of Professor Alistair Etheridge, if the recording was the symptom. Maybe these pages hold the diagnosis. First notebook is what you'd expect from a brilliant academic. The handwriting is precise. The language clinical. Etheridge details his primary theory, which he calls psychoacoustic residue. The idea is that intense human emotions, grief, terror, rage don't just dissipate. They leave a kind of sonic footprint, an echo imprinted onto the very fabric of a place. His early methodology is fascinating, grounded in the sort of fringe science that, while unconventional, feels rigorous. He was trying to measure the ghosts of sound. It is the kind of theory that makes the hair on your arm stand up because it feels just plausible, enough to be terrifying. If he was right, then every old building, every forgotten room is a library of silent screams. But as I turn the pages, something changes. The handwriting starts to degrade. The neat, academic script becomes a frantic scrawl, letters slanting, words crashing into each other. The detached observations give way to something far more personal, more panicked. He's not just writing about his research anymore. He's writing about the entity. In the silence, this is where it gets really chilling. Etheridge wasn't just studying sound. He was studying its absence. He believed the silence in this archive wasn't empty. He described it as a sentient void, predatory nothingness that was watching him, listening to him. He was obsessed with the idea that the moments between sounds were not a pause, but a presence. Then I find it, a phrase repeated over and over again, circled, underlined, practically carved into the page. The void is not empty. It is loud. What does that even mean? How can a void be loud? It feels like a paradox, a madman's contradiction. But looking at the desperation in his writing, I can't shake the feeling that to him, it made perfect, horrifying sense. He wasn't just hearing things in the noise, he was hearing something in the utter lack of it. It's like the silence itself was a deafening roar that only he could perceive. And then there are these diagrams. Mixed in with the paranoid text are these incredibly complex drawings. At first glance, they look like abstract doodles, but they're not. They resemble distorted sound waves, chaotic frequencies, all twisting and converging on a single central point. They're intricate, almost mathematical, and looking at them, a thought clicks into place. This isn't just chaos, it's a key, a pattern. Etheridge wasn't just documenting the noise on that cylinder, he was trying to map it, to translate it into a visual language. These symbols, I think they're the code to understanding the voices in the static. While I'm tracing the lines of one diagram with my finger, trying to make sense of its impossible geometry, Liam's voice cuts through my concentration. He's tinkering with a fried circuit board. Frustrated, he dismisses the notebooks as the ramblings of a schizophrenic, and I can't blame him. It's the logical conclusion, a brilliant mind pushed too far by obsession, snapping under the pressure. Science versus superstition, but I'm holding the evidence in my hands, and the chill I feel tells me it's not that simple. I look down at the notepad beside me without even realizing it. I've been doodling, and what I've drawn is one of Etheridge's symbols. I didn't just copy it. I drew it from memory, unconsciously. It's like the pattern is already imprinting itself on my mind. I'm not just reading his thoughts anymore. I'm starting to think them. And then I hear it, faint but unmistakable. A low, deep hum, kind of frequency you feel in your teeth more than you hear with your ears. It's coming from the phonograph. But that's impossible. It's off. I unplugged it myself after the last incident. But it's there. The silence in this room is no longer silent. I have the terrifying realization that this journal isn't just a record of Etheridge's descent into madness. It's a road map. I'm afraid I've just taken the first step on the same path. Lara felt the weight of Etheridge's last words settle in her soul. His descent from a respected professor to a man haunted by whispers wasn't just a tragedy, it was a map. And every line of that map, every desperate scribble pointed to one location, Vault 73. It was a heavily soundproofed research lab buried deep in the archive's basement, the epicenter of Etheridge's obsession. The place where the sound was born, knowing she couldn't get there alone. She needed official clearance, with Etheridge's diary tucked safely in her bag. She steeled herself and walked toward the administrative wing. The dean's office was a world away. From the comforting chaos of the archive, it was a sterile, modern space of clean lines, polished chrome, and an oppressive, suffocating order. It felt less like an office and more like a surgical theater. Behind a vast, empty desk sat the dean, a man whose entire being seemed to radiate cold, calculated composure. He motioned for her to sit, his expression unreadable. Taking a breath, Elara began. She laid out her findings with the precision of a seasoned academic. She spoke of the erratic seismic readings from 1973, tremors localized directly around the archive's foundation. She connected them to Etheridge's journal, quoting his frantic entries about unusual acoustic phenomena and the vibrations in the stone. She made her case clear and logical. Sir, she concluded, her voice steady, I believe Professor Etheridge's research was incomplete. To understand what happened to him and to verify the source of these disturbances, I need access to Vault 73. The dean listened without interruption, his hand steepled on the desk. When she finished, a long silence filled the room. His response, when it came, was clinical and dismissive. Miss Vance, he said, his tone dripping with condescension, your enthusiasm is noted. However, Vault 73 has been sealed for decades. He leaned back. Picture of bureaucratic indifference. There are concerns of structural instability. Furthermore, a confidential administrative inquiry in the late 70s deemed the area permanently off limits. The matter is closed. Elara's heart sank. This wasn't a denial, it was a stone wall. The dean continued, his voice dropping slightly. The politeness framed to reveal a thinly veiled threat. A promising career like yours, Miss Vance, is built on respecting established protocols. It would be a shame to see it jeopardized by chasing ghosts from forgotten files. The university's official position is that Professor Etheridge suffered a tragic psychological breakdown. I suggest you adhere to that narrative. His words hung in the air, cold and sharp. But as he spoke, Elara noticed something. Every time he said Etheridge's name, his gaze would flicker away, refusing to meet hers. It was a small, almost imperceptible tell, but it was there. And then she saw it. Pinned to the lapel of his perfectly tailored suit was a small silver pin. It was shaped like a star, intricate and unusual. Her blood ran cold. It was the exact same symbol she had seen etched into the wax seal on Etheridge's box of research. The realization hit her like a physical blow. The dean wasn't just a bureaucrat enforcing rules. He wasn't just covering up an institutional embarrassment. He was part of it. He was complicit. This secret, this sound, this thing that drove Etheridge mad, he knew that would be all. Miss Vance. The dean's voice was suddenly sharp, final. He stood, a clear dismissal. The meeting was over. Elara found herself standing outside the pristine office door, the silence of the hallway roaring in her ears. The game had changed. This was no longer about a historical mystery. She was up against a living, breathing conspiracy, a powerful, secretive organization hiding within the university itself. The whispers from the archive. She knew then, with chilling certainty, that the only way forward was to go around them. The only way into Vault 73 was to break the rules. Thank you for joining me for this chapter of the Whispering Archive. The plot is certainly thickening, and Elara's journey is only getting more dangerous. The encounter with the dean was a dead end. Worse, it was a warning, but it didn't scare me off. It just confirmed that I was on my own. The official channels were closed. Liam was gone for the night, leaving me in the suffocating silence of the archive. The sprawling space, usually a comfort, now felt like a tomb. Alone, the only light came from my desk lamp, a small island in a sea of shadows, illuminating the strange, almost hypnotic diagrams left by Etheridge. I spread them out across the table, my obsession growing with every passing minute. These weren't just random scribbles. They were precise, almost mathematical. I started overlaying the transparencies, trying to find a pattern, a constant. Etheridge was a linguist, but he thought like a physicist. He was searching for a frequency, a key to unlock the meaning behind the silence. Quiet in the archive was absolute, a heavy blanket that made every small sound feel like a gunshot. The rustle of old paper under my hands, the groan of the building settling, the distant hum of the city, each one made me jump. And then I heard it. My blood ran cold. It was faint, almost imperceptible at first, but unmistakable. The dry, unique scratching of a wax cylinder turning on a phonograph. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. My eyes shot to the table where the player sat. It was off. The cylinder itself was locked away in its protective case. The sound wasn't coming from my desk. It was coming from the other side of the wall. The sealed concrete wall that separated my workspace from the forbidden Vault 73 dotted knew. The entity, whatever it was, knew I had listened. It was replaying the sound, taunting me with it. It wasn't just an echo trapped on wax anymore. It was here, now, and it was aware of me. My gaze was fixed on the cold, blank wall, my heart hammering against my ribs. Fear is a funny thing. It starts in your ears, but it doesn't stay there. It seeps into your eyes. Out of the corner of my eye, something moved. A shadow, vast and dark, streaked across the far end of the hallway. It moved with an impossible fluid speed, too low to the ground to be human. I whipped my head around, my chair screeching on the floor. Nothing. It was gone. But I knew what I had seen. Shaking, I scrambled to the wall, pressing my ear against the cold, unyielding stone. And I heard it again, not the scratching this time, but something deeper, a low, resonant hum, vibrating through the concrete, through my skull. Just like on the recording, that was it. The last shred of my skepticism evaporated, replaced by a terrifying certainty. Ethered called it the negative resonance. It wasn't trapped in the box. It wasn't trapped in the vault. When I recorded the cylinder, I didn't just capture its sound. I gave it a way out. It had followed me, latched onto the recording like a parasite. It was here, in the archive, and it was watching me. But fear can also forge resolve. I would not be hunted in the dark. I stalked back to my desk, my mind racing. The front door to Vault 73 was sealed. But a building this old has secrets. I rummaged through a dusty cabinet. Pulling out a rolled-up tube of old university blueprints, I unfurled them across the desk, my fingers tracing the forgotten pathways beneath the main archive floor, the maintenance tunnels. The official route was closed, but if Ethered could find a way, and so could I. I had to go underground. I had to face it. All right, Liam, listen. I know you're scared. After what happened with the Midnight Echoes, I am too. But we can't stop now. We're too close. The Dean's shutting us down, telling us to drop it. That's not a warning. It's a confirmation. We've stumbled onto something they want to keep buried. Look at this. This is Ethered's journal, his diagrams. He wasn't chasing ghosts. He was tracking a pocket of sentient entropy. He called it the negative resonance. It's not a spirit, Liam. It's a force. It uses low-frequency sound to literally dismantle memory, to feed on despair. Think about it. The whispers, the cold spots, the feeling of utter hopelessness in that room. It all fits. This thing isn't haunting the archive. It's consuming it. And now it knows we're here. It's not just a university project anymore. I know. You're a tech guy, not whatever this is. You got shocked. You heard things you can't explain. And you're right to be worried about the Dean. Getting expelled is the least of our worries. If we're caught, it's a perfectly logical reaction to want to walk away. But think about it. What if we do? What happens to the next researchers? To the students? This entity is actively targeting us now. Playing by the rules won't protect us. The Dean isn't trying to keep us safe. He's trying to contain a problem he can't solve. He's covering it up. I'm not asking you to be a hero. I'm asking you to be curious. I'm appealing to that part of you that needs to solve the puzzle to fix what's broken. This is the biggest puzzle of our lives. You said it yourself. The systems are behaving erratically. Don't you want to know why? Don't you want to know what's causing the interference? We have a chance to understand something no one else does and maybe, just maybe, stop it. We can't do it alone. I need your skills. I need you. Okay, I get it. Tech support. But no ghost hunting. If things go full-on supernatural, you're out. Deal. We stick to the facts, to the tangible evidence. And I think I've found way in. Away from the Dean's watchful eyes. Look at these old utility schematics. This service tunnel. Right here. It was sealed off decades ago, but it runs directly beneath Vault 73. It's our unofficial route. Our only route. Okay, let's gear up. You grab the tools. I've got the map and Ethered's notes. This is it. Our point of no return not ready. When we last left Alara and Liam, they had just unlocked the path forward, a grim descent into the unknown. The moment they step into that narrow, rusted shaft, the world changes. The air is no longer just old. It's freezing cold, so damp it clings to your skin, and it reeks of ozone and metallic decay. It's a toxic smell, the scent of something unnatural that has been consuming energy down here for a very, very long time. Imagine squeezing through that rusty passage, your voice reduced to a strained whisper, the metal groaning around you. The suspense is just suffocating. They finally hit the tunnel floor, and that's when the true assault begins. That low hum they heard upstairs. Down here, it's not just a sound, it's a physical force. It vibrates up through the soles of their shoes, a constant, oppressive thrum that makes Alara's teeth ache. And just like that, technology fails. Liam's headlamp, their only reliable source of light, starts flickering uncontrollably. His GPS, their map out of this labyrinth, goes dead. It's a chilling reminder that whatever is down here doesn't just haunt minds. It actively manipulates the physical world, isolating its victims completely. They are plunged into a claustrophobic nightmare. The darkness is punctuated only by the unreliable flicker of the headlamp, and the cold is so intense it seeps into their bones. This is where the story truly weaponizes forgotten electrical conduits, Elara follows Etherid's map, tracing their path to the spot directly beneath Vault 73. And that's when she sees it, a truly terrifying detail. The closer they get to their target, the more the tunnel itself seems to be dying. The thick pipes and solid concrete beams are visibly corroded, brittle, and decayed. It's as if the sonic energy from the entity has been physically eating away at the structure, a force of entropy slowly turning everything to dust. This isn't just a ghost in the machine, it's a physical cancer at the heart of the archive. The stakes have just been raised exponentially. The tension builds to a breaking point. Liam is trying to get his flashlight to work to give them some stable light in this oppressive dark. Suddenly, a section of piping directly overhead bursts, but it's not water that sprays out. It's a rush of stale, hot air, and for a split second, a fleeting, dark vapor escapes. But it comes an abrupt, intensely personal psychic attack. A whisper that isn't a sound, but a feeling, a thought floods directly into Liam's mind. It's not a generic threat, it's a torrent of overwhelming guilt about a past professional failure, a memory he thought he had buried. He doubles over, completely incapacitated, clutching his head in agony. The entity is smart. It's not just throwing random scares at them, it's targeting them, finding their deepest psychological weaknesses and exploiting them. Interestingly, Elara is completely untouched. It's a personalized assault, a test. Seeing Liam crumble, Elara reacts instinctively. She grabs him, shaking him, and screams the only rational anchor she can think of, the title of Etherid's research, psychoacoustic residue. The academic phrase cuts through the psychic noise, giving Liam's mind something concrete to latch onto, pulling him back from the brink. They press on, but the dynamic has shifted. Liam is severely shaken. His scientific confidence, his composure, it's all been shattered. He's seen that this thing can get inside his head, and now he's vulnerable. Finally, they round one last corner, and their destination comes into view. It's a dead end, but it's not the original wall of the tunnel. It's a wall of concrete that looks strangely different. It's smooth, newer, and impossibly thick. The horrifying realization dawns on them. Etherid wasn't the last one to deal with this. Decades ago, the university's secret society came down here and built a second layer of containment. They tried to wall it in, to bury it even deeper. Their path forward is blocked by a physical barrier, a tomb built to hold a monster. They have finally reached the outer sanctum. They have entered the architect's domain. What a cliffhanger. They're trapped, their tools are failing, and their minds are under direct assault. How will they get through that wall? Let me know your theories in the comments below. If you enjoyed it, please hit that like button. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next chapter. The tunnel ended abruptly, not in crumbling brick, but in a solid, unyielding wall of reinforced concrete. A low, continuous hum vibrated from its surface, a deep thrum that resonated in my bones. This wasn't just a barrier, it was a cage. Liam ran a hand over the cold surface, his bolt cutters hanging uselessly at his side. We're getting through that with ease, he muttered, the sound swallowed by the oppressive hum. This is new, modern. They built it to trap the entity, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Or to seal off whatever Etherid did down here, a permanent tomb. The thought sent a fresh wave of ice through my veins. We weren't just exploring a forgotten archive, we were standing at the edge of a containment zone. But Liam wasn't defeated. He was methodical, his eyes scanning every inch of the concrete. He was in his element, a man of practical solutions in a world of spectral horrors. Wait a second, he said. Kneeling near the base of the wall, he pointed to an almost invisible network of hairline cracks spreading from a small, square access plate. These are stress fractures. This plate, it must have been an access point from the original Vault 73 floor right above us. When the university sealed this tunnel, they did it in a hurry. It's a weak point. His gaze met mine, a flicker of grim determination in his eyes. I can get through this. I have a small, shaped charge. It won't be enough to bring down the building, but it should be just enough to punch a hole through this section, a controlled explosion. It was risky, reckless even, but it was our only way forward. While Liam retrieved his technical gear from his pack, my attention was drawn to something else. Tucked into a recess in a rusted pipe along the tunnel wall was a small, plastic-wrapped object. I carefully pulled it free. My breath caught in my throat. It was a photograph, faded and decaying at the edges. A much younger Mrs. Chin stood proudly beside a man with kind eyes and a warm smile, Professor Etherid. It was the same photo I'd seen her clutching in the archives. The one she protected with such desperate, frantic energy. They weren't just colleagues. This picture spoke of a deeper connection, of trust, of a shared purpose. She wasn't just a traumatized witness to the events that unfolded. Here, she was part of them, an accomplice, or perhaps the first victim left behind. A soft, shuffling sound from the far end of the tunnel made me freeze. Liam and I pressed ourselves into the shadows as a figure emerged into the dim light. It was Mrs. Chen. Her eyes were vacant, her feet dragging as she shambled along the wall, her lips moving in a silent, tuneless lullaby. She didn't see us. It was as if she were a ghost, forever replaying a final, sorrowful memory. She stopped directly in front of the reinforced wall. Her trembling hand rose, and with a single, frail finger, she traced a shape in the thick dust coating the concrete. A star, a faint, shimmering symbol that seemed to glow for a moment before fading. The same symbol from the Dean's pen. The same one from Etheridge's box. She wasn't just a survivor driven mad by what she'd seen. The entity had left its mark on her, a brand seared into her very soul. She was a living scar, a testament to the entity's enduring power. Without another sound, she turned and disappeared back into the suffocating darkness from which she came. Liam and I exchanged a look of pure, unadulterated dread. The silence she left behind was heavier than any sound. Shaking off the chill, Liam turned back to the wall. He carefully placed a small charge against the access plate he'd identified, the weak point in this concrete tomb. Tension was unbearable. We were about to breach a barrier erected by a secret society, a wall meant to hold back an unspeakable horror. And now we knew the price of failure was not just death, but a fate far, far worse. As Liam connected the detonator, only one question remained. What would we pay for breaking the silence? The air is thick, not just with dust and decay, but with a pressure that feels like it could crush your bones. A low-frequency hum vibrates through the reinforced concrete, the constant, menacing thrum of the entity's containment field. My hands, I notice, are shaking, not from fear. Well, not just from fear, but from the building's relentless acoustic hostility. Every sound is wrong here. I glance over at Ilara, my voice tight as I try to reassure her, and maybe myself. The blast will be contained, I say, my words barely a whisper against the hum. But the sonic disruption is going to enrage it. My fingers fumble with the wires of the focused explosive charge. It's a delicate, dangerous dance. Beside me, a small digital recorder is propped up, its tiny microphone aimed at the wall. A desperate gamble. If this works, we might capture the frequency signature of the breach itself. It's a crucial piece of evidence, a potential key to understanding this nightmare, but it's also a direct invitation for whatever's on the other side to notice us. It's like poking a sleeping beast with a very loud stick. I try to steady my breathing. The smell of ozone sharpened my nostrils. Ilara has found what little cover she can behind a hulking, rusted generator. She's clutching at her instrument like a shield. I see her lips moving, her eyes closed for a brief, stolen moment of calm. She's reciting his last coherent words, a phrase that has become our mantra against the encroaching madness. The only true defense against the void is not silence, but coherence. Coherence, a steady thought in a symphony of chaos. I hope he was right. I finish arming the device. There's no more time. It's now or never. I look at her. She gives a firm, terrified nod. My thumb hovers over the trigger. Here we go. I press the button. There's no boom. No earth-shattering explosion like you'd expect. Instead, the wall reacts with a single, blindingly sharp white crack. It's a sound that isn't a sound for a fraction of a second. All noise is just gone, sucked into an impossible vacuum of silence that is more terrifying than any scream. My vision whites out. My muscles seize. It feels like my brain just got unplugged and plugged back in. When my sight returns, swimming in static, there's a jagged, smoking hole in the wall. We did it, but the victory is short-lived. The entity's counter-reaction is instantaneous, brutal. The low hum spikes into a deafening, soul-shaking roar. The very air around us seems to solidify, turning into a vortex of cold, black static. I look down at the recorder in my hand. It's melting, spitting sparks and acrid smoke. The data is lost. The shadows in the corners of the tunnel detach from the walls, writhing and twisting like living things trying to coalesce into something solid. Go, Ilara screams, shoving me hard towards the hole. We scramble through the jagged opening, concrete and rebar tearing at our clothes. As I pull myself through, a sharp, piercing pain shoots through my leg. I cry out, looking back to see nothing, but I felt it. Something impossibly cold and skeletal had wrapped around my ankle, trying to drag me back. We're inside now, in the chamber beyond. I turn back and my heart stops. The tunnel we just escaped is gone, completely consumed by a swirling mass of writhing black static. We didn't just break through a wall, we've unleashed its full, active wrath. We've just stepped into the lion's den. Falling through the breach, we land hard on a cold metal floor. The change is instant and jarring. Constant, aggressive hum of the tunnels that has been our companion for so long just stops. It's gone, replaced by a silence so deep, so heavy. It feels like a physical weight pressing down on us. This isn't peace, it's the silence of a tomb. The air is thick with the smell of ozone like the aftermath of a lightning strike, mixed with the acrid scent of burnt plastic and decaying metal. This is Vault 73. It's not what we expected. Not a dusty archive, but a laboratory. A large circular room, its walls lined with what used to be sound-dampening panels, now warped and peeling away like sunburned skin. Everywhere we look, there's a graveyard of technology. High-end acoustic equipment from the 70s, all of it smashed to pieces, shattered, melted into grotesque sculptures of failure. It's a brutal, silent testament to what happened here. Etherid's final experiment didn't just fail, it detonated. The sheer scale of the destruction tells us the energy released was catastrophic. In the center of the room stands the most chilling sight of all, a massive sound-dampening chamber. Box within a box, built for absolute, perfect silence. It's dented and scorched. Its thick steel door ripped from its hinges, hanging by a single twisted piece of metal. It gapes open, revealing only a profound, suffocating blackness inside. What was he trying to contain in there? Or what was he trying to listen to? I carefully picked my way through the wreckage, the names of the equipment echoing in my mind from old textbooks. This wasn't just a laboratory. It was a cage. Or maybe a gateway. While I am lost in thought, Liam is checking the walls, making sure the whole place won't collapse on top of us. But my attention is snagged by something on the main concrete wall behind the central chamber. My blood runs cold. Scrawled across the entire wall in a thick, dried, black substance that I pray isn't what I think it is that symbol. The same star-shaped sigil from the recordings, but this one is colossal, monstrous. It dominates the room, a screaming declaration of madness. And beneath it, written in frantic, desperate strokes, are Etherid's last words, a final, terrifying warning. The door is open. I stare at the words, the meaning crashing down on me. He wasn't talking about a physical door. He was talking about a tear in reality, a bridge between our world and something else. Etherid didn't just let the entity out of the vault. He tore open a hole and invited it through. This isn't a rescue mission anymore. This is damage control. We have to find a way to close a door that should never have been opened. Revelation hung in the ozone-heavy air of Vault 73. The door is open. Etherid's final message, paired with the colossal star-shaped symbol now burned into the metal, sent a chill down Alara's spine that had nothing to do with the vault's ambient temperature. The academic curiosity that had driven her this far evaporated, replaced by a cold, tangible dread. Etherid wasn't just a madman. His madness had a purpose, a terrifyingly successful one. The implications crashed down on her. The entity wasn't just confined to the archive, to this single, isolated place. If the door was open, it could be anywhere, everywhere. Her train of thought was violently derailed. Liam, who had been focused on his emergency comms, trying to coax a signal from the dead device, suddenly dropped to his knees. A guttural gasp escaped his lips. But it was the silence that followed that was most horrifying. His eyes rolled back into his head, his body beginning to convulse in a silent, agonizing dance. There was no visible force, no sound, just a raw, devastating spectacle of a man being torn apart from the inside, a purely psychic attack. Liam. Alara rushed to his side, her hands hovering. Useless. Liam, what's happening? Talk to me. He was unresponsive. Lost to her, but she wasn't alone in her head anymore. A whispering cacophony began to resonate not through her ears, but directly into her mind. The voices weren't for her, but she could perceive them. Torn to fragmented thoughts aimed at her friend, they were his deepest regrets, his most private fears. Weaponized and amplified. Failure, not good enough, worthless, the entity was feeding him. His own despair. In the chaos of Liam's silent breakdown, her frantic eyes caught something. A section of the central chamber's inner wall, dislodged by the earlier explosion, revealed a hidden panel. Driven by a desperate need for answers, she pried it open. Inside were no wires or circuits. Instead, a series of thick, organic-looking tubes pulsed with a dim, violet light. They snaked their way to a crude, yet sophisticated device, a bioelectric condenser. Etherid hadn't just been experimenting with sound, he was harvesting life energy itself. The psychoacoustic horror now had a sickening, biological layer. Liam's eyes were starting to glaze over, his body slowly ceasing its convulsions as he neared a catatonic state. The entity wasn't using sound to attack. It was using the silence asterisk between asterisk sounds. The space where despair could fester and grow. She had to break the cycle. She needed to create a counter-frequency. Not of sound, but of coherence, of hope. Liam, she screamed his name again. But this time it wasn't a cry of panic. It was a weapon. She forced her own thoughts into the psychic battlefield, pushing back against the tide of whispers. She projected shared memories, their first mission, late-night debates over stale coffee. The time he'd pulled her from a collapsing ruin, she flooded the silence with connection, trying to give him an anchor in the storm. The struggle was immense, a silent, desperate war for his very sanity. Liam's body twitched. A single tear traced a path through the grime on his cheek, but his eyes remained unfocused. Lost in the psychic void, across the room, the violet tubes in the hidden panel pulsed brighter. More urgently, the entity was feeding on his despair, growing stronger with every second he remained lost. Elara's heart sank. She didn't just have to save Liam, and to understand this grotesque bioenergetic machine before they both became a permanent part of Etherid's whispering archive. It's a game changer, so buckle up. The chapter opens right after the entity's psychic assault on Liam. He's weak, disoriented, and bleeding from the nose, a chilling physical sign of the mental trauma he just endured. This isn't just a spook in the machine, it's a predator that can cause real, physical harm. With Liam recovering, Elara's focus shifts to the truly horrifying machine in the vault, the sound-dampening chamber, connected to that bioelectric condenser by those pulsing organic tubes. This is the moment we've all been waiting for. Elara finally puts all the pieces of Etherid's scattered notes together. His theory about psychoacoustic residue, it wasn't a metaphor. It was terrifyingly literal. This revelation is just brilliant. The negative resonance isn't just an amplifier for bad vibes, it's an active parasitic entity. It needs a constant supply of intense human suffering to even exist in our dimension. Suddenly, the entity isn't some vague phantom anymore. It has rules, it has a biology, and it is hungry. This elevates the lore from a simple haunting to a complex parasitic threat, and it is so much scarier. Elara realizes the sound-dampening chamber wasn't a cage to hold the entity. It was a lens to focus its power. Etherid was feeding it. The test subjects, who we can now assume were the missing students, were placed inside to generate concentrated despair. The entity's sonic frequency would literally strip away their memories and hopes, and the bioelectric condenser would harvest that raw emotional energy, that entropy, to sustain the creature and help it tear a wider hole into our world. That star symbol they kept seeing, it's not a logo, it's a circuit diagram for a soul-devouring machine. As Elara is piecing together this technical nightmare, Liam, still reeling, points out something his senses picked up: the smell, that metallic, ozone-like odor in the vault isn't from fried electronics. He identifies it as the smell of rapid cellular decay. This confirms that the gunk inside those organic tubes is what's left of the victims, directly linking the entity's feeding cycle to a physical, biological process. The vault isn't just a lab, it's a slaughterhouse for the mind. And that brings us to the chapter's sickening climax. Elara examines the final message Etherid scrawled on the wall. The door is open. She touches the dry, black substance he used as ink and realizes it has the same thick, viscous texture as the residue inside the tubes. The horrifying implication crashes down on them. Etherid wasn't just taken by the entity. After realizing the catastrophic failure of his work, he offered himself up as its final willing meal. He used his own processed remains to write that last, desperate warning. He literally became the ink for his own epitaph. The horror is no longer just about what the entity does, but what it makes people do to themselves. This chapter completely redefines the threat and the stakes, just as Elara figures out the terrifying truth that the negative resonance is literally feeding on human despair. A new sound shatters the silence. A metallic clink from the access tunnels. It's not Mrs. Chen, it's not falling debris, it's deliberate, calculated. Elara and Liam lock eyes, pure terror freezing them in place. They know instantly what it means. The explosion they set off earlier, the one that got them inside, wasn't just a breach. It was a beacon. The university's secret society, the one led by the dean, knows they're here. In a heartbeat, the game has changed. The horror is no longer just an invisible psychic monster. Now, it has human agents, organized and ruthless. The monster in the walls is one thing, but the real nightmare is the people who serve it. Liam pulls out his last working gadget, a simple motion sensor. The screen flickers to life, confirming their worst fears. Multiple heat signatures moving with chilling, synchronized efficiency through the tunnels. They're armed, they're organized, and they're heading straight for them. The vault isn't a research site anymore, it's a trap. Elara snatches up Etherid's remaining notes and the strange counter-harmonic device. They have seconds, not minutes, to figure out what to do. They can't fight them, they have to run. Elara understands with horrifying clarity. The deans. People aren't coming to investigate, they're coming to silence anyone who knows the truth. They're coming to restart the machine, to feed the entity. The sound of heavy boots echoes, getting louder, closer. Panic sets in, but then Elara's eyes catch something, high up, near the ceiling. Almost hidden in the shadows, a small ventilation shaft. It's a ridiculous, desperate long shot, but it's their only chance to get past the hunters closing in. As Liam frantically scavenges through the rubble, trying to rig a makeshift climbing rope, Elara's gaze falls on a symbol painted on the wall, a star shape, drawn in something dark and dried. She'd seen it in Etheridge's notes, a warning, and now she understands the Dean and his society. They don't just worship this thing, they are its keepers. They maintain this cycle of slaughter, all in their twisted pursuit of what they call pure knowledge. The game of cat and mouse has officially begun, and this vault is their cage. Now they must climb. The clock is ticking. The heavy, rhythmic footsteps of the Dean's security detail are growing louder, echoing through the tunnels outside the breach. They're almost here. For Alara and Liam, there's only one option left, a hidden ventilation shaft. High up on the wall, it's a desperate gamble, trading one kind of claustrophobia for another. The scene descends into controlled chaos. Liam, thinking fast, grabs heavy-gauge cables from Etheridge's abandoned equipment, twisting them into a makeshift climbing harness. He has to get Alara up first. He boosts her, her small frame just barely squeezing into the tight, square opening. It's a moment of pure, desperate teamwork. They have to rely completely on each other, their survival hanging by a thread in this suffocating space. Just as Alara scrambles inside the dusty shaft, she hears it, the final definitive sound. The Dean and his 3 security guards dropping down into Vault 73. They move with cold, practiced precision, immediately fanning out, their eyes scanning and instantly identifying the breach. The Dean's voice echoes through the vault, calm, measured, and utterly unsettling in its authority. They are here to disrupt the silence, locate and neutralize. That one word, neutralize, hangs in the air, a chilling confirmation of their true intentions. This isn't about detention anymore. Now it's Liam's turn. He struggles with the confined space, his larger frame making the climb. Brutal fight. He's halfway through the opening, his legs dangling, when a bright, sharp beam of light slices across his position. A guard shouts, an alert cutting through the tension. A split second later, a small projectile, probably a high-impact non-lethal round, slams into the concrete right beside him, showering him with dust and debris. Liam cries out, not from pain, but from pure shock and adrenaline. That burst of fear is just what he needs, forcing him the rest of the way into the suffocating darkness of the vent. Inside, they are plunged into absolute blackness. The only light is the faint, trembling glow from Alara's phone screen. The chase is no longer visual, it's purely auditory. They can hear everything. The methodical footsteps of the guards directly beneath them, their controlled breathing amplified by the metal conduit, and beneath that, another sound. The low, constant hum of the entity, now pulsating not just from the vault but through the entire structure, through the very metal they're crawling through. Alara realizes with a jolt of horror that the vents are acting like an acoustic amplifier. The negative resonance isn't just in the vault anymore, it's following their every move. Its insidious whispers now subtly mixed with the chilling sounds of their human pursuers. They've escaped the vault, but they haven't escaped the danger. They've only crawled deeper into it. Alara turns to Liam, her voice a barely audible whisper in the crushing dark. Quiet. Trapped between the thing we can't see and the people who worship it. Their narrow escape hasn't led them to freedom. It has only pulled them deeper into the labyrinth of the university's dark, whispered conspiracy. What an intense chapter. The stakes just keep getting higher for Alara and Liam. So, grab your headphones and let's get into it. The chapter opens with Alara and Liam trapped in a ventilation shaft right above Vault 73. Imagine the tension cramped dark with that constant, unnerving hum of the negative resonance vibrating through the metal. But now, it's mixed with something far more terrifying. The voices of their hunters. The vent acts like a perfect listening device, and what they overhear is absolutely game-changing. Down below is the Dean, but this isn't the polite administrator Alara met. This is someone else entirely. His voice is cold, calm, and filled with a terrifying fanaticism. He's not just a bureaucrat, he's a high priest, and he refers to his guards as custodians. He orders them to gather the bioelectric condenser components, and then he drops the first bombshell, that star-shaped symbol they've been seeing. It's not just a logo. He calls it the key to the great silence, a symbol of their devotion to this horrifying entity. The shift in the Dean's character is masterfully done. He instantly becomes this formidable, true believer antagonist, and it is genuinely scary. But it gets so much worse. The Dean discusses their intruder problem, that's Alara and Liam. He's disappointed they broke the initial barrier. But here is the twist. The chaotic energy released from the destruction has actually made the entity asterisk stronger asterisk. This confirms its entropic nature. It literally feeds on chaos and decay. This is a classic Lovecraftian concept, and it's executed perfectly here. The more you fight it, the more you feed it. Then comes the ultimate reveal, the moment that elevates the story from a personal survival horror to a global thriller. The Dean explains their final plan. They aren't just trying to contain the entity or feed it locally anymore. They've prepared an external amplifier site and are moving the components there right now. Their goal? To broadcast the despair frequency across the entire planet. Liam, ever the quick thinker, immediately grasps the catastrophic implications. He whispers to Alara that a global broadcast wouldn't just cause pockets of madness. It would trigger a simultaneous mass psychic collapse, a worldwide harvest of despair. The stakes have just been raised from escaping a haunted archive to preventing the apocalypse. Suddenly, their personal fight for survival is the only thing standing between humanity and total psychic annihilation, as the Dean and his custodians move on, presumably to strip the rest of the archive for parts. Alara and Liam have a chilling realization. Escaping the building is no longer the mission. They can't just run. They have to find the amplifier's site and stop the ritual before it begins. Their desperate escape has just thrown them into a race against the end of the world. What an incredible chapter. It redefines the threat and sets up an impossibly high-stakes finale. What do you all think? How can they possibly stop a global broadcast? Whispering Archive, continuing the continuous narrative review style, focusing on Alara and Liam leaving the immediate danger zone, and discovering a crucial piece of evidence left behind by Ethelred. The immediate danger has passed, but the tension remains agonizingly high. Alara and Liam cautiously exit the ventilation shaft, moving quickly and silently through the deserted maintenance corridors adjacent to the archive. They know the Dean and his custodians could return at any moment, and they are now fighting the clock to locate the global amplification site. Alara realizes that Ethelred, despite his descent into madness, anticipated this. She retrieves the final, thickest journal from her bag. This journal isn't filled with chaotic scribbles. It's densely packed with seemingly innocuous numerical sequences and geographical coordinates. Liam, still recovering from the psychic assault but driven by panic, quickly determines the numbers aren't random, they're a complex, layered substitution cipher based on the star-shaped symbol as geometry. The very geometry the Dean called the key to the Great Silence. Review Insight. This introduces a classic thriller element. The frantic race to decipher a hidden map grounding the supernatural conflict in a palpable, intellectual challenge, working under the strain of continuous fear with the distant, systemic hum of the negative resonance now vibrating through the archive's pipes. Alara and Liam begin the decryption. Liam focuses on the substitution key while Alara works on the coordinates. They realize Ethelred wasn't just recording his descent. He was leaving a trail of breadcrumbs for anyone who might follow. Profound terror is undercut by a moment of heartbreaking clarity. Ethelred knew he would fail, but fought to leave the knowledge required for a successor to succeed. The coordinates, once decoded, point not to a remote location, but to a specific, highly secure, an off-campus university research facility only a few miles away. A place renowned for its heavy electrical infrastructure and deep-bore seismic research. This is the amplification site. The Dean's plan is terrifyingly close to completion. The chapter ends with Alara snapping the journal shut, her expression grim. They now have the destination, but getting out of the heavily secured university campus and infiltrating a high-tech facility will require them to become thieves and saboteurs. The scholarly research phase of their mission is definitively over. With the coordinates for the amplification site secured, we thought the hardest part was over. We were wrong. The university wasn't just a place of learning anymore. It was a fortress, a high-security cage built by Ethelred's descendants. We were trapped inside, leaving the damp maintenance tunnels. We emerged into the main service areas, a world of humming fluorescent lights, and the oppressive, vibrating HUM of the negative resonance a constant, sickening pressure in our skulls. This wasn't just a simple escape. It was a tense, agonizing game of cat and mouse. The institutional power of the Dean's society was everywhere. Every exit, every hallway was watched by a network of cameras. Liam, brilliant as he is, admitted that with the limited resources we had, bypassing them without triggering a full lockdown was impossible. These security systems weren't just protecting rare books or expensive lab equipment. They were designed to contain secrets, to control every movement within these walls. The university itself had become our enemy, a silent, intelligent antagonist threatening to betray us at every turn. We were running out of time and options. Just as despair began to set in, a flicker of memory sparked in my mind, an obscure detail from a decades-old campus facilities manual I'd once skimmed for a research project. It mentioned a disused drainage culvert built near the old chemistry labs. Its purpose was to bypass a specific geological fault line running beneath the campus. It was a long shot, a desperate gamble. Culvert could be flooded, collapsed after all these years, or even worse, monitored. But it was our only chance to slip past the main security perimeter without being seen. We had to take it. Journey through the surface corridors was a string of heart-stopping near misses. We ducked into a darkened, cavernous boiler room, the air thick with the smell of oil and hot metal. Just as the heavy footsteps of the custodians echoed down the hall, we pressed ourselves into the shadows, barely daring to breathe. Through a grimy window in the door, we saw them sweep the area, their faces cold, focused, and utterly devoid of emotion. Their silver star pins glinted under the harsh lights, a constant, chilling reminder of the fanatical enemy we were facing. As they passed, Liam flinched, his hand flying to his temple. He'd felt a sickening flash of the psychic despair from the entity, a wave of pure agony that washed over him. He realized with dawning horror that the custodians, while shielded by their pins, were constantly bathed in the entity's suffocating influence. They were walking through a storm of psychic pain, yet their faces remained impassive. What kind of person could withstand that day after day? After what felt like an eternity, we found it. Hidden behind overgrown ivy and decades of neglect was a rusted, barely visible grate. This was our exit, using the last of his salvaged tools. A worn-out pry bar, Liam worked at the corroded metal, every screech of the grate being forced. Open sounded like a gunshot in the silent night. Finally, it gave way. We squeezed through the narrow opening and tumbled out into the cold night air, landing in a dense thicket of bushes just outside the main campus wall. We were free from the immediate threat of the archive and the fortress. But as we looked back at the imposing silhouette of the university against the night sky, a profound sense of isolation washed over us. We had the truth. We knew the horrifying location of the amplification site, but we were fugitives. We were the people racing against a conspiracy backed by immense power, an ancient, unknowable evil, and a clock that was rapidly ticking down to the dean's final ritual. The real race had just begun. So, grab your snacks, get comfortable, and let's get into it. The chapter kicks off with Alara and Liam finally escaping the suffocating confines of the university. But if you thought they were safe, think again. The relief is gone in a flash, replaced by Ra. Heart-pounding paranoia. They're out in the open, running purely on adrenaline. And the chilling reality is that the dean's influence stretches far beyond the campus walls. Every car that passes, every siren in the distance feels like a direct threat, a sign that the net is closing in. Using Liam's dying phone and the coordinates they painstakingly decoded from Etheridge's journal, they lock onto their destination, a sprawling, abandoned industrial research complex about 10 miles away. This isn't just some random location. It's chosen for its massive power grid and its geological isolation, making it the perfect place for a catastrophic event. The psychological toll of their ordeal is palpable, especially for Liam. He's not just physically exhausted. He's grappling with the deep psychic trauma from the entity's attack. The script notes describe him constantly rubbing his forehead where the psychic whisper struck him, a subtle but powerful visual of the negative resonance's lasting damage. Fantastic Review Insight points out how this keeps the entity's horror present and internal. Even when it's not on screen, it's a brilliant way to maintain the constant, creeping dread. Liam is a walking reminder of what they're fighting against, while Liam is haunted by the past. Alara is laser-focused on the future, or rather, on preventing the horrifying one the Dean has planned. She's poring over Etheridge's final notes, and the full, terrifying function of the amplifier is finally confirmed. This device isn't just a weapon. It's an instrument of psychological apocalypse. It is designed to find the natural harmonic frequency of our collective human consciousness, and then overlay it with the entity as soul-crushing frequency of entropic despair. Let that sink in. The broadcast isn't meant to kill everyone instantly. It's far more insidious. It's designed to trigger a global, self-inflicted psychological collapse, a worldwide wave of hopelessness and despair leading to what the text calls the ultimate simultaneous despair harvest. Is one of the most chilling concepts I've come across, turning our own minds against us on a global scale. This is cosmic horror at its absolute finest. As Alara and Liam reach a vantage point overlooking the industrial complex, the true scale of the Dean's operation hits them like a physical blow. The compound is immense, encircled by high fences, and patrolled not by campus security, but by heavily armed personnel. This has gone far beyond a secret society. It's a paramilitary operation. And then they see it, a strange, flickering violet light bathing the entire area, pulsing from the main building. It has the exact same ominous glow Alara saw emanating from the bioelectric condenser tubes back in Vault 73. Everything is connected. The nightmare is real. It's happening right now. Just when you think things can't get any worse, they do. Liam, ever the tech genius, manages to hack a local traffic camera and intercepts a coded university transmission. The message is a death sentence for the world. The convergence window is set to open in less than an hour. A specific solar and seismic alignment will provide the global energy needed to power up the amplifier and initiate the final broadcast. The clock is ticking and they are completely out of time. They have to infiltrate that fortress, find the central amplifier, and stop the ritual before the world is plunged into the irreversible. consuming great silence. The chapter ends on an absolutely breathtaking cliffhanger. Elara, clutching Etherid's tiny counter-harmonic device, their one and only hope, looks at the terrifying complex below and whispers the 4 words that set up the finale. We are going in. What an incredible chapter. Pacing is just relentless. It masterfully combines high-stakes action with deep psychological horror. The time for talk is over. The time for action is now. Elara and Liam stand before the amplification site, a sprawling industrial nightmare that serves as the heart of the Dean's secret society. This isn't some dusty old cult. It's a military-grade operation. Razor wire tops the fences. Cameras scan every shadow, and armed custodians patrol with deadly intent. It's a fortress, and they are just people against an army. But they have a plan, or at least the ghost of one. Liam, despite the trauma that haunts him, becomes a whirlwind of focused energy. He pulls out his last piece of salvage tech, a repurposed university security tool. It's a long shot, a desperate gamble. He taps into the complex's power grid, searching for a single fleeting weakness. He finds it, a tiny flaw in the monitoring system. With a few frantic keystrokes, he creates a blind spot, a single second of darkness where the cameras see nothing. Now, he yells, and they scramble through the fence, the metal scraping against their clothes. They're in the air. Inside is electric, charged with a terrifying energy. A sickly violet light pulses from every surface, flickering in time with a low, insistent hum that vibrates deep in your bones. It's disorienting, nauseating. Elara looks at the towering structures, the maze of pipes and wires, and a horrifying realization dawns on her. The entire complex isn't just a building, it's a weapon. A giant antenna, a massive capacitor gathering energy, preparing to unleash its sonic poison upon the world. The hum gets louder, a physical pressure that feels like it's trying to crack their skulls open. They navigate through dark service tunnels and cavernous warehouses, the air cold and stale. The hum is a constant companion, predators stalking them in the dark. As they pass an old, dusty workbench, Elara freezes. A sound cuts through the drone, a quick, sharp cry of human despair, snatched from the air itself before being swallowed by the hum. It wasn't an echo from the past. It was happening right now. The entity, the amplifier. It wasn't just waiting. It was feeding, actively consuming the fear and pain within these walls, growing stronger with every stolen scream. The final broadcast wasn't just a plan, it was imminent. The sonic pressure is becoming unbearable. Liam fumbles with a small device, white noise generator. He flips a switch and a crackle of static erupts, creating a small, fragile bubble of sound around them. It's a tiny shield against an ocean of psychic noise. The only thing keeping the entity's deeper psychological attacks at bay. They push forward, their fragile sanctuary the only thing keeping them sane. They finally reach a heavy steel door, the entrance to the central facility. Through the thick metal, they can hear it, the rhythmic, muffled chanting of the cultists and the powerful whirring of machinery, spinning up to a terrifying crescendo. They've reached the heart of the ritual. They are seconds away from confronting the source, but they are outnumbered, outgunned, and running out of time. They exchange one last look, a silent agreement. There's no turning back now. What lies behind that door will decide the fate of everyone. Peeking through the small observation window in the main access door, Elara and Liam saw it. The sight was staggering, a nightmarish fusion of ancient ritual and high-voltage science. The amplification chamber was vast, like a subterranean amphitheater, and at its heart sat a terrifying apparatus, the global amplifier. It was a monstrous, complex structure of polished bronze, interwoven with thick, glowing violet cables, the same haunting color they'd seen in the bioelectric condenser tubes. Back in Vault 73, the core of the machine throbbed violently, radiating a distorting heat that warped the air around it. Surrounding the amplifier, the custodians stood in precise geometric formations, their silver star pins glinting in the dark light. They were chanting in low, rhythmic, toneless voices, a chilling human attempt to mimic the negative resonance itself. The contrast was spectacular, a cold, clean industrial setting contaminated by a primitive, fanatical human ritual. This was the perfect blend of technological terror and occult dread. At the apex of the machine stood the Dean. His professional suit was gone, replaced by simple, dark liturgical vestments, transforming him into a high priest of entropy. In his hand, he held a piece of ancient, glowing quartz, the psychic anchor he needed to initiate the broadcast. His face was a mask of serene, absolute fanaticism. Elara's breath hitched. She knew what this was. It's a harmonic alignment ritual, she whispered, her voice tight with urgency. They're stabilizing the global frequency to accept the entity's signal. Her eyes darted around, the room frantic, until they locked onto a small, complex terminal mounted near the base of the amplifier. Liam, there, that's our target. We have to disrupt the alignment before he flips that final switch. As if on cue, the chanting crescendoed. The entire chamber was bathed in a blinding white light, followed by a concussive acoustic blast that made the observation window vibrate violently. This wasn't just a ceremony the machine was activating. Liam's voice was strained, barely audible over the pervasive hum that seemed to seep through the very metal of the door. That was the test fire, he rasped. We have maybe 3 minutes before he sends it for real. We have to breach this door now. The desperate realization crashed down on them. They had infiltrated the fortress, navigated the labyrinth, and found the heart of the operation. But they were hopelessly outnumbered, standing before an impenetrable door. With the countdown to global collapse already begun, time was up. Grab your courage, because things are about to get physical. Last time, we left Delara and Liam outside the humming amplification chamber. The Dean's ritual reaching its terrifying peak. In this chapter, the time for stealth is over. But no other choice, Liam makes a brilliant, desperate move. He shatters the observation window. A thunderous crash of glass that perfectly masks the sound of him forcing the chamber door. It's a beautifully executed bit of tactical thinking under extreme pressure, showing just how resourceful he's become. They burst into the chamber and the scene is pure, glorious chaos. The sacred ritual is shattered. Quite literally, the custodians, these stoic, unfeeling fanatics, stop their chanting. Their heads turn in unison, their eyes locking onto our heroes, and the Dean, the Dean standing on the dais, bathed in the eerie glow of the amplifier. He doesn't scream or rage, just turns slowly, his expression one of profound disappointment. You misunderstand the great silence, he says, his voice slicing through the mechanical drone. This reaction is bone-chilling. It's not anger, it's the condescending pity of a true believer who thinks you're too blind to see. Salvation, his absolute faith makes him infinitely more terrifying than any mustached whirling villain. With the chamber in stunned silence, adrenaline takes over. Elara, our brave archivist, doesn't hesitate for a second. She screams at Liam to get to the control panel, and then she does something we haven't seen before. She attacks. She launches herself at the nearest custodian. This is a massive shift from the psychological dread we're used to. This is visceral. This is desperate. Elara, with no combat training, is fighting for her life, using anything she can grab a broken rack. A heavy cable as a weapon, her ferocity is breathtaking, and it actually catches the trained custodians off guard. While Elara creates this vital distraction, Liam sprints for the control panel, but the amplifier isn't just a machine. It's a weapon. The negative resonance lashes out not just as a mental assault, but as a physical sonic spike. Liam is slammed by the invisible force, stumbling, his vision filled with static. He realizes the closer he gets to the machine, the more targeted and powerful its attacks become. The entity is actively defending itself. It's a race against both the custodians and the malevolent intelligence within the machine itself. Elara's fight is brutal. She discovers the custodian is unnaturally strong, seemingly shielded by his unwavering faith in that silver star pin he wears. But her desperate, reckless courage pays off. She manages to smash a piece of metal across his chest, staggering him just for a moment. But a moment is all they need. That small victory buys Liam the precious seconds to reach his goal. The chapter ends on an incredible cliffhanger. Liam slams his hand down on the glowing control panel, frantically trying to initiate a shutdown sequence. At the exact same time, on the dais above, the Dean raises his glowing quartz anchor, moving to complete the ritual. The physical battle for survival and the psychic war against the great silence have finally converged at the very heart of the machine. The stakes have never been higher. What an absolutely electrifying chapter. The fusion of raw action and existential horror is just perfectly balanced. What did you all think of Elara's charge? Let me know in the comments below. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the Whispering Archive, please hit that like button and subscribe for more chapters. Thanks for watching. We'll see you